Hi, everyone. Welcome to this episode of the 3030 webcast. Today, we have a special guest here to talk with us about crowdfunding and publishing on Kickstarter. This is Oriana Leckert. She is the head of publishing at Kickstarter, where she helps creators bring a marvelous array of literary projects to life. She's written and edited for Vice, MTV News, Slate, Hyperallergic, Gothamist, Atlas Obscura, and many more. Her first book, Brooklyn Spaces, 50 Hubs of Culture and Creativity, published by Monticelli in 2015, grew out of a multi-year project chronicling the rise and fall of under-the-radar creative places across New York City. You can follow her at Oriana, BKLYN, on most social platforms. So, Oriana, welcome. Thank you for joining us today.
Ben, such a delight to be here. I didn't realize that bio is a little bit of like a challenge for people to read all of those funny media outlets.
I probably should have practiced saying it out loud, but I was like, how do I pronounce? Is that Monticelli or Monticelli?
Right.
How should I say this?
It's hyperallergic. You got right the first time. Most people just say hyperallergenic.
Yeah, I did read that. See, I'm dyslexic. And so when I read that, I read hyperallergenic and I was like, that doesn't sound right to me because it looks like it's not that. So anyway, I did have to read through that in my head a couple of times. Yeah. But anyway, welcome to the webcast. Thank you for being here. We've got some people who are here in our webcast already watching live. We are recording this so we can share it later with our following on Instagram and across social media. Oriana is going to share a presentation with us about Kickstarter, what she does, how she helps authors fund their projects on Kickstarter. And after that presentation, we are going to go into Q&A session. So if you are here, please type your questions in the chat. We'll get to those as Oriana is talking. If we need to interrupt her presentation, she says she's very open to stopping and chatting throughout. But if we don't have anything immediate, then we can just wait until the end. Also, if there are not as many questions in the chat, we do have some questions from people who weren't able to show up today that wrote in their questions, and we will share those at the end as well if we have time for them. So, Oriana, the time is yours.
Okay. So great, because I can now not see you or anything except this presentation. So you'll just have to tell me if anything goes wrong or if anybody wants to talk to me. I will also preface by saying I am in Brooklyn, and there are inevitably going to be motorcycles and fire trucks and all sorts of noise out my window. So if that becomes a problem, just let me know.
Sounds good. I will stop you if I need to.
Okay, awesome. So Kickstarter 101 for authors. We did this a little bit, but here's some bit about my background, what brings me to this work. My career's been sort of half and half traditional book publishing and digital media. So I've been all across the publishing landscape, learned all about it. And that is what I bring to my work here. Just let this cute little, what is Kickstarter gift play. When we see Brandon Sanderson the second time, we'll know that we have gone through all of these rad projects that were brought to life. There he is through Kickstarter. So I always like to start with what sort of sets Kickstarter apart in the crowdfunding landscape. Our mission is to bring creative projects to life. That is everything that we believe in. We believe so strongly in that mission that we reincorporated as a public benefit corporation. I didn't know what this was before I came to Kickstarter, but it's like a pretty strict legal and business charter that turns us into a mission-driven for-profit organization. So everything we do has to come back to that idea of bringing creative projects to life, engendering more creativity in the world. Kickstarter's funding model is all or nothing. That means if you set out to raise $5,000 and you only raise $3,000, you don't get any of that money. People think that that's scary at first glance, but it was actually designed with creative people in mind. The idea behind this is that during the course of a campaign, you're going to make a lot of promises about the thing that you're going to make, how many pages it has, how big it is, what color, etc. And if you get to the end and you don't have enough money to actually do that thing, you've put yourself in a really bad spot. So we don't want anybody to be forced to bring their creative project to life with an incomplete budget. Another foundational thing about Kickstarter is that we are in the business of giving you your audience. This has been true since the company was founded, long before it was clear that all that work you might do on a given platform, building your audience, could be immediately taken away by the flick of a wrist of a corporate overlord or an algorithmic tweak that suddenly means there are major gatekeepers between you and that following. Kickstarter is very generous with like demographic information. We share all sorts of things about where your supporters are coming from, what time of day they're backing your project, what kind of device they're using, what sort of what of your outreach is working. And we also really encourage you to sort of further collapse those boundaries between yourself and your audience. So you can talk to them in backer updates. You can ask them questions, send surveys and polls. You can encourage them to tell you things, and they will comment on your project. So it's really about sort of like bringing people closer in to your creative journey and as founding members of your audience. Finally, Kickstarter's fee is 5%. That's an industry setting standard. We have never raised our rates. Our payments are processed by Stripe, and they take like a 3 to 4% variable. So if you budget 10% for fees, you'll be more than covered. And that is less than you will spend most places you can sell books on the internet. Just some numbers. In Kickstarter's life, $9.5 billion have been pledged to creative work. We're getting close to 300,000 projects funded from more than 25 million unique backers. And now I'll tell you some stats just about the publishing side. By the numbers, 75,000 projects launched, almost 3.5 million unique backers, close to $450 million pledged to publishing campaigns. And for projects that reach at least 25 backers, your chance of success in publishing on Kickstarter is 85%. I think that's a really important number because 25 backers, that's a little bit bigger than your mom, your best friend, the folks who are kind of obligated to support anything you do. So if you're doing the work and you're getting a little bit beyond that inner circle, your chances of success here are extremely high. Just some averages from last year. Average projects in publishing raised a little bit under 20K from just under 200 backers. The average pledge per backer, $72. That's much higher than our site average. And I think it's a great indication that folks who are coming here, it's a very different mentality than your sort of standard online book buyer who's probably trying to get a 99-cent ebook. People are coming to Kickstarter and they're really willing to spend significant money on beautiful projects. And just last year, we had more than 3,000 first-time creators in publishing. So there's new folks trying this out all the time. And the year-over-year growth in my category has been pretty fantastic. By basically every metric for the last 5+ years, number of projects launched, number of projects successful, overall success rate. So publishing on Kickstarter, it's going really well. So why would you do this? What are the benefits of Kickstarter for authors? There are a number of reasons, and you might come onto the platform for any one of these or some combination of several. The main thing, obviously, this is a crowdfunding site, so you're going to be developing an additional revenue source. You can do things on Kickstarter separate and apart from all of the other ways you are making money through your writing. You can do special editions, you can do new launches, you can do really any kind of book project on Kickstarter, and it's going to bring in more money than what you're currently making. I already talked about this a little bit, but Kickstarter really helps you connect directly with your readers. That can be through specific rewards. You can offer to sell off naming rights to future characters, or even like have your backers participate in scenes. You can offer annotated editions and various kinds of signed copies. You can talk to your readers about what kinds of rewards they would like to see, what kind of stretch goals they might be interested in supporting, and let them talk back to you and tell you everything that they're thinking about your work and what it means to them. Kickstarter is an excellent place to test out ambitious ideas because it turns the traditional publishing P&L on its head. You get the money first. You get to assess appropriate print runs. You get to understand what the desire is for this project, and you get to make sure that you can afford it before you set out to make it. I just said set appropriate print runs. You can also use our rewards to sell through your backlist. So if you're funding book 5 in your series, you can sell books 1 through 4 in individuals and bundles as rewards. You can do that on any other book project. Sell all their copies of other things, boxes of books you've got lying around in your basement, overprints from previous campaigns, things like that. Kickstarter is great for demystifying the publishing process. Again, through those backer updates, you're going to be talking to your supporters all through and then far beyond the campaign itself. So a lot of people don't know how a book gets made. So you can talk to folks about, we're sending the print files to the production house. We're getting the tip-ins to do our signature pages where the books are on a boat. Did you know that books come over on a boat when you print them overseas? All sorts of things like this to help people understand all of your associated costs. And then finally, Kickstarter is a great place to try something new with IP that you already own. We've seen a lot of this recently, people doing tarot decks and board games and jigsaw puzzles and comic books and soundtracks. So any sort of stuff that's like already, your characters, your world, your setting, translating that into a different forum to attract different kinds of supporters can be really successful here. I'm just going to do a really high level overview of what goes on, how a campaign kind of works. If people have questions about this, we can certainly talk about it after the presentation is done. But this is the sort of big picture. So the first thing you're going to do, figure out what you're making. Is it one book? Is it recovers of a series? Is it a whole new genre that you're branching into? Is it a literary magazine, a podcast, an audiobook? What is the thing? Define the audience, the idea, and then figure out where your audience is, who's going to be interested in this. The next step is budgeting. Do not skip this step. Take it very seriously. This means getting samples from one or perhaps multiple printers. It means really thinking through all of the rewards that you're going to produce, what those are going to cost. Also, don't forget to factor in bubble mailers, tape, stamps, shipping, all of the money that's going to be associated with the project that you're making so that you really, really know that you will have enough money to do these things that you're promising. Start connecting with your audience and sharing your plans long before you say the word Kickstarter. I would go to them first and say, guess what? I'm moving into a whole new genre. Here's a new kind of project, a kind of book that I'm going to be writing. I can't wait for you to support it. Get them excited about the idea itself while you are designing your campaign page. Put together your campaign page, add all of the appropriate elements, add all your rewards, build it all out, submit it for review through our system. And then once it's approved, you can activate a pre-launch page. This is a pre-marketing page that's designed to accrue followers. Once you have that pre-launch page, now it's time to go back to your audience and say, hey, remember that new book I was telling you about? I'm going to make it on Kickstarter and I could use your help. Please come with me on this creative journey. Make your Kickstarter account now, go to the other room, get your credit card, have them remove that friction, follow the pre-launch page so that you can be one of the first people to support me when I go live. I would recommend a pre-launch phase of at least 2 weeks. We see about 30% conversion from pre-launch followers to project backers in publishing. So any work that you do, getting that follower count higher will help really tremendously once you launch. It will also give you a good sense of it's a sort of test run for your outreach and promotion. If you're spreading the word far and wide and that's really working and you're getting a lot of followers, that bodes very well for how things will work once the campaign is going. We typically recommend running a campaign for about 30 days, about 4 weeks. The vast majority of your action will happen the first and last week, often the first and last 48 hours. But we do recommend, especially for early campaigns, that you give that space in the middle for everything to kind of activate the way that you want it to. Also, I'm sure you can imagine most of your outreach will not be seen the first time or maybe at all. People, even who do see it, might have to see it 3 or 4 times before they finally decide, yes, I'm ready to jump in. So yeah, give yourself that plenty of time in the middle to make sure that all of your activations will come to fruition. Last year, we rolled out late pledges. This was because anyone who's run a campaign knows that the day your campaign closes, you'll hear from at least 5 people who say, I had no idea you were running a Kickstarter. I would have loved to support your work. So this allows you to kind of catch all of those stragglers, the results of all of your marketing pushes and everything that didn't quite make it before the deadline. In order to not undermine the sort of like now or never FOMO of the Kickstarter campaign itself, I recommend running late pledges for only like 2 to 7 days. Do not offer everything, and the tiers that you do offer, charge more for them, because you do want to make sure that you protect the experience of those earliest adopters and make sure that they feel really rewarded for their early support. Finally, now you get to manage all your pledges. You get to send your books to the printer. You get to fulfill and ship all of your beautiful books, delight your audience with everything that you've made, and start thinking about what you're going to do next. I just left this rewards brainstorm in because to my mind, rewards are pretty central to the Kickstarter proposition. I think they're what makes this kind of fundraising super compelling. I'm not necessarily suggesting that you should make any of these rewards exactly, but think about what these rewards make you spark in you that could be more related to the work that you do. I will also say, I did not invent any of these rewards. All of these came from me looking at other Kickstarter campaigns and seeing what other folks are doing. So I will say to you right now, the best thing that you can do for yourself to prepare to run a campaign is to back other campaigns. For one thing, you will learn what it's like from a backer perspective, which will help you be that much smarter when you are the creator. For another, it shows that you're really involved in the whole community. You're trying to give back as well. And finally, it's really fun. Back campaigns and you will see how joyful people are, how exciting it is when all of these things are working, when people are supporting your creative project, and it'll make you feel really good to participate. I think this is my last section. I've already forgotten because this is a slightly abridged deck. But let's talk about how you're going to find all of those people who are going to support you in your work. I've heard this described by Russell Nolte, a friend and an industry person, that there are 4 kinds of audiences: owned, earned, borrowed, and bought. Owned is your existing audience. This is, the people who are subscribed to your mailing list, your followers on social media, people who you've got their phone number and you could text them, the folks who really want to hear from you, your most inner supporters. This is where you're going to start all of your outreach. This is the group that you will likely message the most often, and with the most familiarity. So that's the strongest place for getting conversions. Next is earned. Earned media used to be earned audience used to be like traditional media. You'd write a press release, you'd send it off to your local newspaper. Maybe they'd write about you. As we all know, the media ecosystem is pretty fragmented at this point, but that doesn't mean that there aren't a lot of earned media that you can look into. This is anyone who's deciding that you have earned the right for them to share you with their audience. So podcasters, folks with YouTube channels, folks who do big Instagram lives, anything like that, book reviewers on whatever website or platform you can find them. Definitely reach out to people and see who in those sort of areas might think that they find your work deserving of a share. Borrowed is audiences that are loaning themselves to you for a temporary moment. The broader Kickstarter community is definitely part of this borrowed audience. There are thousands of readers on Kickstarter who are just waiting to discover that they're your fan. You can expect about 20 to 30% of your backers to come through the broader Kickstarter ecosystem. So that's not nothing. You will be growing your audience while you're on the platform, but it's not everything. Kickstarter is designed to have an amplifying effect. So you definitely need to bring your audience to bear first. That will signal to our algorithm that this is a project that people really like, and it will be disseminated farther and farther through our recommendation engine. Other kinds of borrowed audiences include signal boosters and amplifiers. Again, these are folks with big newsletters or people who moderate communities on Reddit or Facebook groups or things like that. This can also be other people who have live Kickstarter campaigns at the same time that you do. It's a great idea to reach out to other folks in the community, offer to cross-promote their work while they promote yours. And then finally, the 4th kind of audience is bought. This is performance and digital marketing. Anecdotally, what I hear is that can be a lot more difficult for this to be useful when it comes to creative projects versus like gadgets and other things like that. It's definitely worth a try to see if this is working for you. Choose whatever platform you're the strongest, put a little bit of money behind some posts, see how that goes. Or if you have the interest and the means, working with somebody whose job it is to understand how performance and digital marketing work, because this is changing all the time. Okay, just going to share some resources, leave this up for a minute. Our Learning Lab, this is a new video series on Kickstarter that is designed specifically for creators. This is category agnostic, so it's for people doing a lot more than just books, but there's a lot of stuff that's relevant to any kind of creators. Similarly, our General Creator Hub, this is a collection of articles and resources. There's also, I believe, a link to sign up for our creator-facing newsletter, which is called Working on It. Our support center is where you will find questions to everything, every kind of question you can think of. Answers are there, and anything you can think of, and lots of things you can't. It's also really good just for browsing to understand things. Our general our page for all of our newsletters. In addition to, we've got 2 category agnostic newsletters that go out to the whole community each week. And then we have monthly category specific newsletters in publishing, comics, film, design and tech, and games. So you can sign up for all of those there. And like I said, the best thing you can do for yourself, if you're even a little bit Kickstarter curious, is back some campaigns, learn all the best tricks, and steal them for your own. That is my presentation. So I will unshare. We can get to some questions.
Thank you, Oriana. That was so interesting. Everybody here in this call, please put those questions in the chat for Oriana to answer. But first off, I just thought that was such an eye-opening presentation. I loved that. I've been following Kickstarter for a long time. I think the first campaign that I backed was way back in like 2012, 2011. And
I love that.
Following my friends who have been putting their projects up on Kickstarter for a long time. I have so many friends who have made careers out of putting up their creative projects on Kickstarter. Like, for example, one of my very good friends from college, she and her husband make board games, and they launched their first campaign in like 2015 and have since published like 6 new board games on Kickstarter, and they just do that for a living. And it's so cool to see how Kickstarter impacts individuals with creative visions that can create really cool projects. So thank you for sharing all of those details with us. We've got one question in the chat that asks, do you see any genres do better on Kickstarter than others?
Yeah, this is a question that I get a lot. There's certainly a larger prevalence right now of like romantasy, fantasy, science fiction, lit RPG, some cozy mysteries in there, general other like sort of subgenres of romance. I will say again that just because if you happen to write Westerns or memoir or something that's not one of the biggest genres, doesn't mean that you're not going to have success on Kickstarter. As I sort of talked about a little bit in the presentation, the majority of your audience is coming from off platform. So if you know how to find your readers in the world, that's going to get you much farther than just waiting to see what's kind of the most popular on Kickstarter. The other thing though, is that unlike, again, your sort of standard online book buyer who's probably like deep in the sub categories of Amazon, who like only wants to find reverse harem lesbian romance novels set on the moon, people on Kickstarter seem really eager to go cross genre because they just want to support interesting, cool, creative projects. So if you make a really beautiful campaign, it sort of doesn't matter if you're doing one of the more popular genres or if you're not, you're still likely to get that same like 20 to 30% of Kickstarter ecosystem folks who are like, yeah, that sounds fun. Let's try it out.
That's so cool. I really love that. I mean, you mentioned in your presentation that the average campaign that gets, any campaigns that get over 25 backers are 85% likely to fund, which is excellent. So, I mean, if you can imagine just even 50 people backing a campaign, 10 to 20 of those people are going to come from Kickstarter. And that's really, really interesting. We have somebody who wrote in a question that is kind of along these lines that we've been talking about, which is around social media and newsletters, which was like, how many social media followers should you have before launching a Kickstarter campaign?
Yeah, I will never give you numbers. There isn't like a right answer to a question like that. First of all, it deeply depends on what your project is. If you're doing a print on demand paperback launch of a new book and your goal is $500, you don't need hundreds of followers to raise $500. If you're doing, a deluxe leather bound omnibus and your goal is in the high 5 figures, then you're going to probably want to have a significant following, but it really is going to depend so much on what it is that you're making. And your audience best. Are they highly engaged? Are they casual followers? Are they likely, what's your conversion? Like you have to do a pretty honest assessment of like, who's in your audience already, what kind of behavior you think is likely to come from them, and then what levers do you have to pull to get beyond that audience and to bring in backers through like various other avenues. So yeah, there can be plenty of people who fund really highly who do not get their audience primarily from socials. So
awesome. Another question in the chat. Do debut authors usually do okay with their very first campaign?
Yeah, it depends on how you measure your success. I think the most important thing to think about when you're setting your campaign up is that you need your ambition to match your reach. So again, if you're a debut author, if this is like the first time you're doing this, you probably are not going to do a special edition with a slipcase with sprayed edges and all sorts of things like that. You're going to want to make sure that the thing that you're asking for is relatively achievable given the audience that you already have. I will say Kickstarter is another thing that's really good about it is that you will be building your audience project by project. It is another platform by which to find followers and supporters and things like that. So if you start small, do a really nice job with your first project, you can probably increase your ask by the time of your second campaign and, move yourself forward in that way.
Cool. Really good points. Another question in the chat from Amber says, for a special edition book, do you have to have the cover designed already in order to garner interest? It sounds like you'd still need to be willing to invest in that and get all the designs together in order to accurately determine the cost anyway. So insights on
So
that.
I would not, yeah, there's not anything that you have to do. It will be easier if you have a cover image to market your campaign for sure. You'd probably put that in your main project image. You'll probably use it a lot on your socials. So if you have that money to invest, that will help you. There are plenty of things that you can do. If you don't, if you have an artist that you're planning to commission from, you can share their other work. You can ask for a mock-up, which might cost less. You could even talk to the artist about what kind of profit sharing they might be willing to do if you raise XYZ on Kickstarter, since they will have an interest in you getting that money, because they will get paid out of it as well. So think about that and look at other campaigns. I would say investing some money in visuals will help you. It is not a hard and fast requirement.
She wanted to follow up quickly with that one as well. If you have any insight on this, where can we find legitimate special edition resources? I have no idea where to start with finding a printing place who would even do that. So do you have any ideas on who
I
to work
do. I do. I would say the first thing is that print production is an intentionally fairly opaque industry. I wish that weren't the case, but it is. For this reason, Kickstarter recently revamped we have like a expert partners, like an ecosystem partners page, which I think is just kickstarter.com/experts. There are some print houses there, but there are so many print production facilities all over the world. I will just do like a very light overview, which is to say, there's, depending on the quantity that you're printing, if you're printing less than like 300 or 500 books, you are likely going to want to print domestically with print on demand. The main companies that do this are like Lulu and Mixum and KDP, and I'm sure I'm skipping another really big one, but those should be easy to find. If you want to do a print run, which is going to make your unit cost significantly lower and probably where you're going to start getting reasonable margins on all of your sprayed edges and various spot glosses and things like that, you're likely going to do that overseas, and you are going to need significant quantity. I think most companies have a minimum 500. Occasionally, you can get a minimum 300. That said, what I would actually do, building community, I talked about as being really important for getting your audience together. It's also important for learning about what's happening in your industry and like what other people are doing here. There are a lot of groups out in the world. There's a pretty active Reddit scene about authors on Kickstarter. There's a Facebook group called Kickstarter for Authors, not officially affiliated with us, but run by several really reliable Kickstarter creators, Anthony Sharp, Thorn Coyle. That group has like 8,000 people, and it is just folks asking each other all day long, where'd you get your sprayed edges? What are your shipping costs from Canada? So like talking to other authors, talking to other people who are on the same journey as you is going to be helpful to you in literally every way as far as community building, but also in getting answers to some questions like this.
Excellent. I love that. I think we have time for one final question before we end the call today. And we've got one more in the chat, so that's perfect. If we set a goal and we don't reach it, but we are willing to put in our own funds to make it happen for those who did sign up, is there an option for that?
No, so that would be self-funding, which you're not allowed to do. I would say I have heard it said, even by like very experienced Kickstarter creators, that a Kickstarter campaign that doesn't fund is actually a dodged bullet. You will have learned so much if you run a campaign that doesn't meet its goal. And you can absolutely take that learning, reconsider, change the things that you need to, and launch the project again. You can message directly to all of those supporters as soon as you relaunch and say, you believed in me before, come on over, let's do it again. Here's what I've changed to make this more accessible and achievable. So I would instead think about it that way. Anything that you will not owe anybody any money if your Kickstarter doesn't fund. You don't owe Kickstarter, Stripe, nobody. So all you will have done is spent some time to do some pretty significant learning about your audience, about your outreach abilities, about how you message, all these different things. So use it as a great lesson and figure out how to do things differently the next time around.
I think to clarify also in there, the customers are not charged if the campaign
Also
does
correct.
as
Yes.
well. So there's no money lost on either side. That's correct.
100%.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Oriana. This was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed the presentation and our conversation afterwards. Thank you for sharing all of your insight into crowdfunding and Kickstarter with our audience. And we are very glad. I should have mentioned this at the very beginning, but everybody who has stuck around to the end, Kickstarter is a sponsor for 3030 this year. They have been very generous to jump on board and support what we are doing with 3030. So I wanted to say thank you to Oriana and the larger Kickstarter team as well for the support of 3030 and for all of the information that you've shared today with our users. So thank you very much.
Heck yeah, an absolute pleasure, Ben. Thank you so much for having me.